it's time to continue the stash busting, and I guess it's time to pick a mystery project out of the bin. And if you're not familiar with my monthly mystery project, I chose some yarn and fiber from my stash in December, sealed them in zipper bags, and then concealed each month's possible project in a paper lunch bag. It's been about 3 weeks since I filmed that video, so I really don't know which bag holds which yarn or which fiber. And I guess this is my one since I've picked it up now. I fully intended to choose a pattern for each of the projects, but I realized while going through Ravelry that I'm truly a creature of indecision, procrastination, and whim. So we'll just open up the bag, and if it doesn't immediately tell me what it wants to be, we'll give it a day or two while I work on a couple of the works in progress. Put this aside for the moment. Do I seriously have the audacity to sit here in a store-bought sweater? Indeed I do, because I went to Torrid to pick up new underwear, and this sweater just sort of leapt out at me saying, Willow Rosenberg has entered the conversation. Plus, also, it's very cheery and seasonal. When I left off with the Hearst Hap Hood by Gudrun Johnston, I had finished the front and the back and had picked up the stitches on the hood. Nothing has changed. I also have a pair of socks that I take with me when I go out, which hasn't been very often lately, mostly due to the weather and the holidays. And I have a sweater that I cast on last spring that needs finishing. One right here, the Step-by-Step sweater by Florence Miller, and this is in Karin Blossom Cakes in the colorway Rose. I started knitting on it again when you weren't looking. I've separated off the sleeves from the body, right here, and now I'm just going around in circles until I get to hip length, I guess. This could take a while. Before I forget, I mentioned at the end of December that I'd finished plying, washing, and drying a skein of yarn. What I didn't mention was that I then started spinning up the remaining half of a Fat Cat Knits Fiber Club from somewhere around 2014 that I'd started a few years back around the time I got my little e-spinner. The club used famous couples as a theme, and this one was Sam and Dean from Supernatural, which is 80/20 Superwash Merino Trilobal Nylon Sparkle Comb Top. Apparently the cat's excited about it. This one's Dean. I'd spun it as a chain ply. Sam is going to be more of a 3-ply fractal, and I've spun the first single, and there's 2 to go. There'll be an entire video on clearing my wheel for January, so considering this video will probably come out in February, you're probably already aware of how it turned out. So I guess that's my January started. We're actually a few days into January, truth be told. With the holidays and social obligations, I've had very little time to film. Plus, I haven't been feeling all that great. With the way the weather bounces around in Calgary at this time of year, I get headaches and migraines very easily and frequently. And the last thing that I want to do is turn on my filming lights. And this is after mostly recovering from the cold/flu one of the husbeast's coworkers so generously shared around the office. So this is your reminder that if you're sick, you should be staying home from work, particularly if you can do the job remotely. We'd already planned on a pretty low energy Christmas, but getting sick kept us from participating in the annual family turkey dinner. So thanks, unknown coworker. May your feet find your kids' Lego in the dark for the next month. I've been working on the pink sweater because it not only has nice large stitches that are hard to miss in low lighting, but I wasn't really tracking progress on it last month, and thus you guys probably wouldn't notice if it was a little bit bigger than before. By a whopping 1 inch. Woot. I didn't say that my logic made sense. But now that the intro's done, I can go back to working on the hood, and maybe it'll get done while it's still cold outside. Maybe. At least it's something to keep my hands busy while playing Baldur's Gate 3 and Final Fantasy XIV. We introduced one of the friends in our Baldur's Gate co-op to Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm going to need something to do while he's going through all the cutscenes in the base game. Fun, fun. So let's find out what it is that we have. Good thing I cleared my wheel, or at least I'm in the process of doing that, because it looks like we've got another Into the World spin. This time, Flounce. From December of 2014, 7525, Blue-Faced Lester and Tessa Silk. Really nice. Lots of pretty purples. I'll get better pictures of this later. Anyhow, I think I am going to go get an Advil because we have a Chinook. Yay. The cats are restless. Hi. It's like opening a Christmas present from myself. It's a balmy 8 degrees outside. We are having a Chinook, so it means I've put the cats out in the sunroom to play so that I can take a look at my floof and make some decisions as to what I want to do. I'm thinking I might make a shawl, so that means I want to preserve as much length as possible. Probably make a 2-ply because a 3rd ply would just take up more of the floof that could go into length. One of the things that I did notice after I put it out to take a look at it is this right here is the center. And if I was to detach it at the center and turn it into plies, so basically make strips and spin those strips consecutively, left side and right side. If you take a look at the way it goes, and I don't know how much you can see, the dark and the light kind of balance each other out. And that happens throughout most of the length of this roving top. I'm not sure what exactly it is. Even to the ends where we've got a dark end, a light end, and if you go further down, the darks and the lights seem to balance each other out. They switch around the same times. So I'm thinking what I might do is split it in the middle, turn it into strips per side. So this will be one bobbin, and this will be one bobbin, so in half. And then ply the 2 bobbins together. So it makes this really cute barber poling effect, which when knit up should be a somewhat heathered look. Not certain, but it could make a really cute scarf or shawl. So I guess the next thing I'll be doing is going through Ravelry and my pattern stash to find out what I want to make it into. It's been a while since I've been in the loop when it comes to what's in on Ravelry, at least in terms of shawls and other accessories. Or I could take a look and see if there's anything in my pattern stash vis-a-vis vintage and antique patterns. So we'll see what we come up with, but I'm kind of thinking this might be a really nice blue-faced Leicester and Tussa silk shawl. My mind might change after I see the yarn spun up, but that's what I'm kind of spinning for at the moment. Anyhow, I'm going to divide this up, I think, while I can, and then we'll maybe let the floofs back in the house. The cats, that is. Maybe we'll let the cats back in the house. There's a reason why I don't usually do a lot of filming on the floor. My foot fell asleep, and now it's going to take me a little while to get back up. Oops. While I'm down here, I know it's dark, so you can't see too much. I'm about 2 inches into the actual hood of the Harris Tab hood. And I'm kind of in danger of running out of yarn. That is not something I was expecting. I'm quite probably going to have to unravel the original front piece that I made that was way too small. I'm hoping that I'm going to have enough yarn to do this. Hopefully it'll get to, at very least, the hood section. Whether or not I have enough to do the lace trim around the hood, I don't know. But hopefully I'll be able to actually finish the hood itself. That'll be really disappointing if I run out of yarn before I can finish the hood, because yikes. Yikes. Almost makes me wonder if I should actually be making that into the hood. But yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. By the time I'm done with this, I'm not going to want to look at the hood again for a while, I don't think. It's hung around just a little too long, if you know what I mean. It's not what the Knitmore girls would have called potato chip knitting. It's not, you can't just make one like socks. Yeah. So we'll see where I go with this. I would hate to have to throw in the towel on something that I've worked over a month on. That would be really disappointing. But I thought I would give you an update while I'm stuck down here on the floor waiting for my foot to get some feeling into it. Okay, I think I'm good. It's been a fun and relaxing January, and it feels like I got a lot. Before I go on, I'd like to thank my craft coven for making all of this possible. If you'd like to join their ranks, there's links to Patreon all over the place, but specifically on the channel page, in the video description, and at the end of the video. Or if you prefer to stick with YouTube, there are also channel memberships. If that's not up your alley, it's no problem. I'm just glad that you've made it this far into the video, and I hope that you stay to the end. And if you could boop the like button, that would be fantastic. Maybe check to see if you're subscribed at the same time. So here's where we are at the end of the month. I finished the Hairstap hood. And if we wind up dipping back into the deep freeze, it'll come in really handy. We've been having some unseasonably warm weather this year, even for our little pocket of the Rocky Mountain foothills. So the local logic is that we'll inevitably have a cold snap to make up for it. Apparently no good weather goes on. I've used the hood a few times when it's gotten chilly out. We had a very snowy day that required shoveling the driveway and walks, so I put the hood on underneath my business casual medieval hood, and it was so toasty. I was snug as a bug in a rug. 10 out of 10, no notes. I heartily recommend the combination of a Hairstap hood by Goodwin Johnston and a Londinium hood designed by Opus Elena if you're in an area where it gets really cold and you don't have a parka. If you do have a parka though, wear the knit hood under your parka hood. That would be so good. And yes, if you want the height of luxury, find a cashmere blend because this is soft as a cloud, even knit with 3 strands and a lot. Possibly even more luxurious because of the 3 strands of yarn. I didn't know how much the yarn would bloom or poof out when I wash it, so it's really very sturdy and it doesn't let in a lot of cold air, which is something that is usually really good around here, but because it's a really warm day, I might have to take this off in a minute. I used the remains of a Color Mart heavy lace weight package that I bought back in 2017. Didn't realize it was that long ago, almost 10 years. I have a little bit remaining, but not really enough to make much. So maybe someday I'll see if there's enough left to finish off the lace trim on the fancier version of the hood. But right now, I'm fine with the plainer version. The nice thing is that I know that Color Mart's still there if I want or need to make another project, and they've apparently been offering more services since I did. So if you want to get a multi-pack like I did and have individual cones plied together into one yarn, they'll apparently do that. You can get it on the cone, or they'll wind it into a ball. They'll also wash the yarn so you don't have to go through the whole yarn washing process, which is probably worth the extra cost because it is a process. I didn't film it because the kitchen was a mess, but because Color Mart yarn is made for industrial knitting, it still has oil in it. So you have to wash it really, really well. The process includes Dawn dish detergent and a sink full of hot water. I think I had to empty and refill the sink about 5 times, possibly more, before it ran clear because of the oils and dye runoff. And then I put it into a normal bath with unscented soap detergent. So, quite the process. It took about 3 days to fully dry on a blocking board in the living room. Right over there. With a sweater stretcher over top of it so the cats wouldn't get at it. So yeah, if you've got the extra money to take advantage of those services, it might be well worth your while. I did just fine on my own, but that's a bonus for me. Either way, the hood is fantastic. It does tend to move back a little bit, but otherwise fantastic. Do I wish that it came in multiple sizes rather than embiggening it by changing the gauge of the yarn and the needles? Yes. Yes, I do. It probably would have saved me a cone of lace weight cashmere blend, which would have been nice for the lace edge. Just saying. I'm going to take this. How can you tell the cats are out in the sunroom? I can open this thing up without being... Yeah, I hope my hair doesn't look too messy for using the camera monitor as a mirror. I just didn't want my hair rubbing against the microphone. So I've put some more stitches onto the sweater. Not a lot, maybe about an inch of length, because I had other things on my plate, and while the pink sweater doesn't seem as much of a slog as the cat sweater last fall, it's still kind of a slog. I'm starting to understand why so many knitters like their sweaters cropped. After a while, they just sort of say, screw this noise, and just stop, and unfortunately it's not a look that I can really pull off. I was taught to dress like a stovepipe for warmth, so I generally feel like sweaters should extend to hip level. Though I kind of like this look I've been seeing lately where the sweater kind of stops at the overbust. So it's 2 sleeves bridged by a tiny bit of sweater. And I've been thinking of making a granny square sweater at some point, but I may revise that idea. Make one of those, what are we going to call it? Sleeves? Micro sweater? Whatever, it's that. And I'll happily take an opportunity to dress like my Final Fantasy XIV character who happens to have a shirt like that. So it's something to think about for the future. I don't know. This might have looked really good as just sleeves and a little bit over the overbust. Might have to make it with the neckline from the step-by-step sweater. The carry-along socks around here. The carry-along socks have not been knit on. They're the same size. And depending on what mystery project materials I pull for February out of the bin, this may stay this way. Speaking of the mystery project, we have yarn. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm trying to decide what it's going to be. This is 75% Blue-Faced Leicester and 25% Tussa Silk from Into the World in the colorway Flounce. It was the December 2014 Luxe Club fiber, and I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic, and it's going to make a wonderful shawl if I can decide which one I want to make. The difficulty, once I've figured out a pattern, is going to be deciding who it belongs to, because as much as I like it and would look good in these colors, I also have 2 sisters-in-law who would also look fantastic with this yarn knit up and draped artfully around their shoulders. So I have some choices to make. It could take a while. I'm not in a rush. While we're on the subject of hand spun, I started making a winter toque for the husbeast. We haven't had a lot of really cold weather, but when we have, he's been relying on his usual summertime caps. Apparently one of the toques I knit him was unfortunately itchy, and the rest seemed to have just disappeared. I'd made a sockhead slouch hat for myself back in 2015, and apparently the husbeast really liked the silhouette, so this one's for him. It's huge. I had to check Ravelry to confirm when I knit my hat, and I was surprised to find that it's been about 11 years. Time just goes way too fast. At any rate, I'm most of the way through the hat. I've started decreasing my stitches to make the crown, and then I'll be done. I was really surprised how fast I got through the 4 inches of Knit 2 Purl 2 ribbing, because purling usually slows me down. Knitting socks has really helped me learn patience for Knit 2 Purl 2 ribbing, because I prefer about 20 rounds for the cuff of my socks. When I first started, 10 rounds seemed to take forever, but I've learned to really enjoy a beefy 20 round sock cuff. This hat's ribbing is just over double that amount of rounds, if memory serves. So it's about 40 rounds, give or take, and has more than double the amount of stitches per rounds, which of course means extra effort. It is worth it though. There are some folks who know exactly what they're doing and know exactly what their yarns will look like when they're spun up. And me, if there's anyone who's the epitome of the phrase going on vibes when it comes to spinning, it's me. It's always an adventure. This yarn started off as some beautiful floof from Fat Cat Knits Mixed Blessings Fiber Club back in 2014. According to Ravelry, I did a little mixing and matching with 2 months worth of fiber, so 4 colorways in total, since the FCK Fiber Club was 5 ounces total, but split into 2 colorways. So you could then mix them together or spin them separately, which can be really quite lovely if you want to do color work. I split up the 2 months, possibly because one colorway from each month looked like they'd blend well together, and I think this yarn was what was left over from that pairing. So this is a 2-ply yarn. 1 ply of Periwinkle Sky on Falkland from October of 2014, and 1 ply of Rubato on 63% Polworth, 12% Tussa Silk, and 25% Trilobal Nylon Sparkle from November 2014. And I'm loving the way that it stripes, and the brown, blues, and neutrals mixing with the rosy browns. Because it's one strand of each color, it has more of a heathered look than a solid in any given area. So those places where the colors do happen to be similar in both plies really do look cool, and they really do stand out. And because of the Polworth silk content, it's really soft. I'd be surprised if this was itchy at all. I'm not seeing much of the trilobal sparkle. It is there, but it's really quite subtle. The yarn comes off a little bit more matte, but I like it, and hopefully the husbeast will like it too. The last thing that I made in January was a jersey knit jumpsuit, and it was a little too big. I'll be revisiting that one on my own, probably off camera, with slightly heavier fabric. It's going to need some serious revision in the pattern for me to find it comfortable. I have to correct the sizing. It was just too big all over. And I need to taper in the legs because otherwise it's just not safe for me to wear in a house with 2 sets of stairs. It being too big all over is my fault for not being a little bit more precise and going by my measurements. Apparently my measurements have changed a little over the past month. The legs, on the other hand, are a choice that seems to be going around lately, and for larger ladies like me, the legs just seem to get really large. So again, that's something that, because I'm the one who's making the thing and I know enough about sewing to be dangerous, I can change that myself. So now I'm wondering what this next month's mystery project is going to be, and whether I'll be casting on anything new aside from it, or taking advantage of Finish It February to work on a few UFOs that I've had languishing around the house. And that could be the sweater, it could be a sock, could be I think there's a handbag that I was working on, or a crafting bag that I was working on that's an antique pattern. So I could dredge up something from the UFO bin in the basement. There's also the thought of knitting a red toque in solidarity with our friends in Minneapolis. I've got the pattern in my cart so I can contribute to the charitable donations, but I'm not really sure that I like the crown shaping. So we'll see where that goes. So this month's total stuff used: Color Mart heavy lace weight, almost done. I think I've just got a little bit of that left, and it might be enough to put the trim on something. Who knows? Maybe something really small and lacy. I've got 4 ounces of Into the World fiber, which has now been converted into yarn, and fabric for a jumpsuit. I've possibly got enough left over to make a t-shirt or a tank top. Pretty awesome. In the works, toque for the husbeast, almost done, pink step-by-step sweater, and the pair of socks. The last one may get pushed aside for the monthly mystery project because there's a greater than 0 chance that the project will be, you guessed it, socks. I guess we'll see what the totals look like next month. See you next time.